Hello, Tom McGuire. I'm just going to review the book How to Be Perfect, the Correct Answer to Every Moral Question by Michael Schur. So in this review, I'm going to tell you why this book is actually quite useful and what I liked about it. Then I'm going to tell you what irritated me about this book before going on to talk to you about the most important lesson that this book has in it. And this is a personal development channel. I review books, but I'm very much about personal development. I do these reviews to leave book reviews to my kids so that when they're older, they can look back at the stuff that their dad kind of read and listened to and, you know, what I got from it, how it shaped me to a certain extent. And they can laugh at their old man trying to be a YouTuber and all that sort of stuff. But it also, I decided a few years ago when I started doing this, when I started taking my reading a bit more seriously, I also decided that I wanted to be able to talk about the stuff that I read. It's no good just kind of reading and listening to stuff. I tend to get through about 70 or 80 books a year, but it's no good doing that unless you actually take the information in and have a think about it. So doing this, when I do these reviews, I tend to do them in one go, hence why they're always full of errors and different things. But it gets me to think on the spot about what I've read and what I've learned, and that kind of helps me. And the more I do it, the kind of better I get at that, hopefully. So very quickly, just a little bit about who Michael Schur is. So he was writer and producer on The Office, the American version. Now, The Office in the UK by Ricky Gervais is absolutely hilarious. Ricky Gervais is one of my favourite comedians. I don't know the American Office version very well, but I have heard it's quite good. To be fair, a lot of us Brits kind of, when it first came out, were a bit like, what the hell, the Americans are doing a version of that? That's not going to work. But apparently it is quite good. I haven't seen it yet, so I need to reserve judgment a little bit. But this guy, I haven't done a lot of research on him yet, unfortunately, but he seems to be worth a hell of a lot of money. I think he's a multi-millionaire. I think he's worth $100 or $200 million or something like that. That could be wrong, but that's what I saw on the internet anyway. I have to say that although there are lots of things I liked about this book, and I said a minute ago I'm going to go over the bits that I liked, one of the bits that irritated me was, particularly at the beginning, it felt quite wokey as it started. And there was a few times I felt as though I was kind of giving it a go and gritting my teeth a little bit and kind of thinking, my God, being preached to a little bit. And the style of the audio is quite, there's little beeps and bongs, and it's slightly comedic the way it's done. It depends on your kind of sense of humour, I suppose. Some of it did make me smile a little bit. Some of it did make me kind of giggle a little bit. But overall, I didn't find the humour that funny, personally. I just found it slightly irritating at times. But it's one of those books that once I'd got through it, I actually listened to it before bed when I'm falling asleep. And for me, that's a sign of a really good audiobook. The best audiobooks that I've listened to, I tend to listen to bits of as I fall asleep in the evening. And I've started to do that with this one, which is really quite a surprise for me, because most of the way through this book, I found myself kind of going, okay, another preachy kind of lesson. And the thing that irritated me most is he talks quite often in a way that I hear a lot of people talking nowadays who think that they're right all the time. You know, you get these people these kind of virtue signalers who, they believe that they're reasonably well educated, reasonably well read, experienced, worldly wise, blah, blah, blah. And pretty much anyone who doesn't agree with them is kind of redneck and inbred and a bit thick and hasn't ever been anywhere and blah, blah, blah. I never think it's okay for anyone to be so arrogant in their opinion that they're able to kind of say, and of course, those people are wrong about that, because we all know that. And it undermines the argument for me. And it just felt as though a couple of times he kind of said that. And I just kind of thought, oh yeah, another kind of reasonably well-educated, successful person who's convinced that they're right, and anyone who massively disagrees with that is wrong. And that really put a bit of an edge on it for me. But I would say the overall message in the book is quite positive, you know, that we need to be open to learning and to being better people and to being more ethical and to making wiser decisions. So that overall kind of message I really liked, and I found the closer it got to the end, the more that message became clear, and I kind of found myself forgiving the other little things that irritated me. But I just don't like feeling like I'm being preached to by people who, it's kind of why I find someone like Jordan Peterson quite refreshing, because whether you like him or you don't like him, I think he's at least very good at kind of saying, but I could be wrong about that. And actually, let's not write off this whole group of people because they believe this or that. I don't necessarily think that's good, but actually they come from a completely different experience, a completely different culture potentially. And actually their ideas and their opinions aren't completely stupid just because they have them. Actually, they're coming from somewhere else and we have to try and work with that and learn from that. Whereas this book just felt a little bit like we're all ethical, we're all moralistic, blah, 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 until someone says this or that, which of course isn't acceptable. And you just sort of think, yeah, okay. Of course racism isn't acceptable, we know that. And he says that in the book. And of course, hatred isn't acceptable and all that sort of stuff. But it's a bit too simple to kind of just say that someone who says something racist is just thick. Maybe there's something else there that's kind of led them to think that we haven't really considered potentially. And maybe it isn't out and out racism, maybe it just appears that way. I just think things are a bit more subtle than he kind of gives it credit in the book. But it's worth a listen. It is quite good, and it's one of those books that I'm finding that I'm liking more and more now that I've finished it. I'm going back over it, like I say. So please keep liking and subscribing, and I will do another one soon. Cheers.